Figuring out how to research and understand education technology, both in how to design it, is critical. And the institutions play a huge role in that, but it ends up what we're finding is a lot of the traditional methods don't really apply in this field. I'm Vic Vuchic, Chief Innovation Officer at Digital Promise Global. And what we do is we work to advance learning opportunities for all, leveraging research and technology. And we're based out of the United States, and we do work globally. We're a nonprofit that was launched by the Federal Department of Education in the US about 7 years ago. And we work with doing research, working with entrepreneurs and product developers, and with districts and schools across the country to really ground our work in practice. Understanding the status of the global EdTech industry is complex. There's a lot to it. It's a pretty broad field, but there's been tremendous advancement and growth. I think we've seen in the US and the markets a lot, and now in the rest of the world. I tend to break it up into kind of three areas where I see a lot of advancement and growth. And the first is kind of around access. So, these are online courses, access to materials and resources and institutions running virtually, whether it's in K-12 or higher ed, and there's been tremendous growth in that over the years, open educational resources playing a role there, and that's been very global across the spectrum. The second area is what's kind of more around operational efficiency, and so that's gathering data systems and more around organizations and institutions, both informal and formal, and being able to use that new data and information to run the education systems and ecosystems much better and in new ways, and innovating based on that. And I would say the third area is around actually pedagogy and learning. And that's where, technology and a lot of tech startups are focused on richer interactive experiences, project-based learning, empowering learners, new ways to do simulations and VR and things like that. So I think that that's really starting to grow. I would say we're more nascent there than in the other two. I would say the other two have been going and grown for a lot, but the last one is where I think we're just starting to be able to imagine what's next. And I actually remember one colleague actually said it really well, where he said, he's a researcher in the field. He said, I feel like we're at the beginning of when movies first came out in the beginning of the 1900s. And the first thing they did with the new movies was they would set up and record theater productions. And then they would just replay those in other places. They couldn't imagine what was possible with this new medium. And so similarly on the pedagogy and the way of learning, I think we're just starting to crack the imagination of what we can really do. And so that's where I'm excited for the future, to see a lot of the market in the field to start innovating even on a global level. What the role of the higher education institutions are in the EdTech industry and the field more broadly, I think it's interesting, and I think it's at an evolutionary stage. And I think figuring out how to research and understand education technology, both in how to design it and to evaluate and understand what's working, what's not, and helping to facilitate the kind of the ecosystem in terms of the knowledge base and what we know and what we should do is critical. And the institutions play a huge role in that, but it ends up what we're finding is a lot of the traditional methods don't really apply in this field. If you do a 3 or 4 year longitudinal study on efficacy, the technology is out of date by the time the results come out. It's useless. And so we can't use some of these traditional kind of long-term, slower, absolute methodologies that we do. And this is a lot of what we do at Digital Promise. How do we do faster cycles that get more immediate feedback, maybe more design and implementation feedback, and context obviously plays such a huge role in learning. So how do we understand that and communicate that in our research studies? And how do we represent the knowledge in new ways that people can use it, so that it's not just, a giant tome, 1,000-page tome of academic speak, but we have visualizations and short videos and case studies that get that information out so that people can use it and build on it in their design. And so that's where I think the universities and the networks of universities can really help move the field forward and accelerate the entire market. And I will add, the one last thing that we've been focusing a lot is with a lens on equity. And especially in the market sense, a lot of these things tend to first go to places that have, and for populations that have and fit sort of the normal average. But And that's where Europe can play a really powerful role given the diversity and proximity of all these diverse cultures, languages, and with refugees and all these populations that really need this. So if you intentionally bring that lens of equity, what does that look like in the research context, and how do you help support markets to be able to support those broader populations?